Would help if I did this correctly. I apologize, everyone. Let's start that from the beginning. Welcome to a live edition of the Cross Border Interviews Municipal Affairs Show. As you can tell, live editions are often the best when you are a team of one. My name is Christopher Brown, and we are broadcasting live from the Saskatchewan Urban Municipality Association headquarters in downtown Regina, covering the 2024 Saskatchewan Provincial Election. Over the next few hours, my guest and myself will be breaking down the election results and talking about how this will impact municipalities, but also the province as a whole. Joining us today is the CEO of Suma, Jean-Marc Nadeau, and also the Scoop Political Briefing and Earnscliffe Strategies partner, Mr. Dale Richardson. Dale, Jean-Marc, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Chris.
So I apologize right off the bat again for those who did tune in right off the top and did not hear us. We are live now, and we do have audio.
We can definitely hear you here, by the way, Chris.
So
there you go.
So don't worry.
I guess I should quiet down a little bit. First off, I want to start by talking about where we are prior to the polls closing. So we are less than 23 minutes away until polls close across the province of Saskatchewan. And at dissolution, they had 42 seats for the Saskatchewan Party, 14 seats for the Saskatchewan NDP, 1 seat for the Saskatchewan United Party, 3 independent, and 1 vacant seat. That going back to the 2020 campaign. Just hold on. In 2020, the Saskatchewan Party, led by Scott Moe, won 48 seats. The Saskatchewan NDP, led by Ryan Miley, won 13 seats. No other party had won a seat in that election. And that brings us to today. We are now just under 23 minutes away until the polls close. Jean-Marc, 28 days since Scott Moe called this election. From a municipal standpoint, what did municipalities want from this election, and did they get it?
Well, we were really much looking forward to some conversations around public safety, around sustainability of our municipalities. Municipalities manage 60% of the public infrastructure in this province, and quite frankly across the country, and only collect about 10 cents every dollar tax dollars collected. So we were really looking forward to hearing from both parties, well, all the parties, what they would do with respect to sustainability for our municipalities. There's a lot of issues with infrastructure that and a bit of downloading, not to be criticizing the government, but there's been some downloading that's been happening with mental health and addiction, with landfills, closures, and so on. So really, that's what we were looking forward to hearing from the leaders in this election platform.
Dale, from your perspective, what were the parties trying to capture in this election? Because the Saskatchewan Party was trying to aim for their coveted 5th term return to the legislature as the governing party. The Saskatchewan NDP were looking to win back government since they've been out since 2007. So what were they trying to accomplish during the last 28 days?
Yeah, different strategies for both sides, I think, Chris. The Sask Party, they were trying to, first of all, put forward their plan, which was focused on affordability first and foremost. I think it maybe surprised some people. It surprised me to a certain degree just how focused Scott Moe and his party focused they were on affordability. I think the first 10 announcements that they made were just on cost of living, with a little bit of healthcare sprinkled into that, and at the same time, they addressed cost of living, and healthcare together. They had a couple of announcements where, fertility treatments, helping with the cost of that, women's health as well, cost of diabetes medication or supplies. So I think that they were really focused on that, healthcare obviously to a certain extent, but also for the Sask Party trying to paint the NDP as, trying to remind people of what the past NDP government was like. The Moe and the Sask Party, they talk about decline, doctors leaving, young people leaving the province, not as many teachers, the whole litany of and list that the Sask Party typically goes through. Obviously, the carbon tax, standing up for Saskatchewan versus the Justin Trudeau federal government, which has been Scott Moe's bread and butter for many years since he's been premier. And then contrasting that with the NDP, Carla Beck and the NDP, this campaign has been about change. I mean, it is just a classic change narrative versus a long-term incumbent government of 17 years for the Sask Party, basically putting forward their plan of people in Saskatchewan, you're probably sick of these guys. Here's our plan for change in this province. And they focus on affordability as well, but the NDP healthcare has been a major topic for them, particularly in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, I've noticed.
John Mark, from Suma's perspective, earlier this year you launched the We Are Urban campaign, which rolled out talking about the urban issues that municipalities are suffering. I don't want to say suffering, but are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Do you think the parties heard your message loud and clear? Because you drive around, and I drove around in Saskatchewan. I saw the We Are Urban campaign billboards that were popping up across in smaller urban centers.
Yeah.
Do you think the parties heard from Suma's perspective?
Well, actually, Premier Moe during the debate 2 weeks ago actually referred to villages and resort villages and towns as being urban. So I think that was a coup. I think the parties heard us. Certainly, they recognize the challenges that our members are going through. And we're looking forward to the next government being in place so that we can sort of refocus our advocacy and meet the new ministers and start the advocacy basically from day one once the cabinet's in place.
So there's going to be a lot of election results coming in over the next few hours. We are still about 18 minutes away until polls officially do close. What's the message that, from Suma's perspective, that you wanted the leaders and the candidates, the local candidates, because we have to remember, party leaders are only party leaders because their members are the majority in the House, which is 31. What's the message that you're hoping that the new crop of MLAs bring into the legislature from a municipal standpoint?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we really want to see the new government really focus on the municipal autonomy and the sustainability of our municipalities. We need to find new ways, new revenue streams for municipalities. I mean, we are very fortunate in this country, in this province, as it relates to other jurisdictions, to have the municipal revenue sharing. And there's two provinces that have a funding stream the way we do, and but that's not enough, right? We take the good with the bad. If the PST is high, we get good return. If the PST is low, then like we happened in 2021, that went down. That's fine. But at the end of the day, because we manage 60% of the public infrastructure, recreation facilities and roads and water and sewer, those cost a lot of money. And there's only one taxpayer in this province, in this country. So we really got to find ways to be innovative in a way we create some new revenue streams for the municipalities so that they can continue being sustainable in this province.
Back to you, Dale. One of the issues that I heard when I was traveling across and speaking to, as the municipal show, talking to municipal leaders, was that healthcare piece that you talked about of Scott Moe trying to address healthcare and Carla Beck trying to say we need to change the page. We are seeing province after province this issue being fought over healthcare, especially in elections. Did the voters get to hear what they wanted to address the healthcare issue from a Scott Moe or Carla Beck, or are we still in a murky waters that we were prior to this election being called?
It's a great question, and I mean, one of the big questions coming out of this campaign is who saw what and what messages broke through. Like I mentioned at the top, the NDP they really focused on their plan to improve healthcare. Now, whether people think that plan, at least on paper, was any better than what the Sask Party has done for the last 4 years, I mean, that is kind of up in the air. I personally thought there were some holes in it. The NDP, they promised $1.1 billion for the next 4 years. The Sask Party, they said that they had spent $1.8 billion over the past 4. So the NDP didn't really have any targets in terms of. I think they added some towards the end of the campaign, but anyway, I guess it really depends on who you are and where you live in the province, I think. And like you said, all provinces in Canada are dealing with healthcare challenges, and if you're in your community, no matter if it's Saskatoon or Torquay, and you can't get in to see a family doctor, or your hospital just has personnel challenges, then maybe you don't really care who the government is. You just want somebody to fix it. So
healthcare encompasses a large file, though.
Yeah,
we can
huge.
talk about mental health and addictions. We can talk rural and remote health. We can talk just social services as well. There seemed to be a more pressing focus on those issues in the later half of this campaign.
Yeah.
The first part of the campaign, it was kind of a sleeper campaign. People were getting ready for Thanksgiving, so no one was really tuned in until the second sort of everyone had their turkey and they were stuffed, and they were really willing to listen to Scott Moe and Carla Beck talk.
Yeah.
So when we talk about healthcare, the next government, whoever it will be, will have a big file to try and fix, because it seems to be on a lot of people's minds, whether it be that mental health addictions or just access to affordable or access to a family doctor.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge file. I worked in that file when I worked in the Sask Party government many years ago. It's mental health. You're right, Chris. It's a massive and increasingly important piece of the healthcare file. To your comment about why that it became a bigger part of the campaign in the last 2 weeks. It's something I've been wondering about is, the NDP, they kind of started off their campaign focused on affordability first and foremost, and then they really switched into high gear, really focusing on health. And I'm not sure if that's because the Sask Party and Scott Moe came out, as I said, with a pretty serious, or at least they had a number of measures to help with affordability. Maybe the NDP thought, okay, we're a bit surprised by this, and seems like Moe and the Sask Party, like they've really kind of taken the hold of the cost of living piece. So we're going to pivot to focusing just on healthcare. That's our real path to victory here. But no, I mean overall though, health it's a top issue for everybody in the province. Like I think it's been the top one or two issues for as long as I've been around. I can't think of it when it hasn't been.
It's an issue for municipalities as well. Mental health and addiction is a cornerstone advocacy for us, but also doctor retention. I mean, we have members that have bought residencies as a means of recruiting doctors, and so that's an issue that definitely needs to be brought to the government's forefront and addressing. Chris, I have to tell you, I just got a text from one of our listeners. Apparently your and my voice is not as loud as it might be.
Okay.
So
we'll turn it up a little bit here.
We should probably turn it up just a notch. But
okay, continue.
Carry on. No, that's good. I think I made my point.
No, I want to continue on with the Saskatchewan healthcare file, because that was an issue that I heard in Warman. That is an issue I heard in Yorkton. Mm-hmm. That is an issue I heard in Kipling, down in Estevan, and even in bigger Saskatchewan. I heard healthcare. Yep. That's where the mayors, the councillors, or even the candidates running to be the councillors and mayors in this upcoming November election. Healthcare seems to be a priority for municipalities, but we know that is not a municipal issue.
That's right.
It is a provincial issue. How do municipalities work with the next government to ensure that they take it serious and address it from a provincial standpoint, so we don't have more municipalities buying residents to house doctors or retain the doctors in their communities?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've been working on for the past, I'll say 3-4 years now. I mean, you talked about Kipling. I remember Redverse talking to us about the closures at the hospital and the bypass. And I mean, that's all boils down to an issue of sustainability. If municipalities aren't able to provide services to their residents along those lines, not just recreation, but healthcare and so on, that is an issue that provides for residents to want to move, perhaps. And so leaders that want to see their communities grow, that's an issue that we continue working with whoever the government's going to be, and we're looking forward to the end tonight to see who will form the next government. But we're looking forward to working with the new cabinet and bringing those issues forward and hopefully find a solution for the long term.
Now, we are just over 10 minutes away until polls close across the province of Saskatchewan. And while we will be trying to broadcast as much as possible over the next few hours until someone is declared winner, and hopefully it does happen, unlike the British Columbia election where it took a week to officially call, hopefully it does happen tonight. I do want to also acknowledge that we are broadcasting live today from Treaty 4 territory, the homeland of the Métis Nation. I wish to pay my respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this territory. We will be broadcasting probably every half hour or so, and then we'll be taking about 15 to 20 minute breaks, just as results slowly trickle in. Throughout the night, John, Mark, and Dale will be switching out. It might just be Dale from time to time. It might also be John, Mark. And we'll be talking about different aspects over the next few hours. There's going to be some big challenges that this next government will have to address. And we talked about healthcare. Policing will be one. Rural and remote infrastructure is going to be another. It seems like, and this is for Dale, it's going to be a close election tonight. Polls, and you can take whatever poll you want to hear. Some are saying 5 up, 5 down, depending on what party you're in favor. This next government is going to have to address a lot. With it being so close, will they be trying to play to their bases after this election, or do you think they're going to be working towards a more consensus government?
Well, it depends on what the margin is, for sure. At the end of tonight, for the NDP, I mean, if it is close, their goal will not be to speak to their base; it'll be to speak to the parts of Saskatchewan that they didn't do quite as well in, or parts of the province where they need to win to form government in 2028 if they do get close here. If it's close for the Saskatchewan Party, I think there might be a feeling that they need to double down and maybe speaking more to the rural part of their base. I would personally, maybe caution against that. There's a good chance that they're gonna lose seats in Regina and Saskatoon, and that has been where the party has really gone from 2007, where they did pick up more seats in Regina and Saskatoon, but in 2011, 2016, 2020, where they held a number of seats in the big cities, and that's where they became a powerhouse, juggernaut political party. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of things to address in this next government, whoever wins.
This will be, if Scott Moe wins tonight, this will be the first time a party has won 5 consecutive elections since 1960 under Tommy Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm going to be full of facts tonight, so I apologize. I've got a few in my back here, but this will be a big win for the Saskatchewan Party if they do pull out that coveted 5th term majority government. There is a lot of incumbency factors that are going on in this province, in this country, and even municipally. Do you see that happening here because it is so close, or is it so close because there's so many different issues, whether it be those urban-rural divides?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are going on. I think incumbency is certainly one of them. I mean, again, if it is a close result here tonight, or if the Sask Party even loses, for sure. I think people at a certain point, no matter how strong the leader is, how strong the premier is, how strong his or her team is, at a certain point, some people just get tired of that party or, whoever is running things in the province, and it's nothing against them personally, but sometimes that's how it goes. I
just want to throw, because this is the only province that I've covered where the provincial election happens at the exact same time the municipal elections. Not the exact same day, but they do overlap.
You'll knock this one out of the park.
I know Suma was calling for the province to change the date, but there is an apathy when it comes to municipal politics and people confusing where they should lie. We talk about healthcare being a provincial issue. Do you hear from your members, as the CEO of Suma, or even the candidates who are running, that people are getting confused of what they should be asking their candidates at their door?
Especially in the big cities. We have 16 cities in this province, and I'm driving around Regina right now, and I was in Saskatoon earlier this month. The number of signs that are on lawns, right? If you're talking the school boards versus the provincial versus the municipal, and they're all laid out on the front lawns. So I kind of think of myself as a bit of a political junkie, and I'm having difficulty understanding who's who in those signs.
Same here.
Right? So that's a challenge, and that was what we were advocating the provincial government last year and earlier, even before that. And that was as a result of the Saskatchewan's report suggesting that cities should have a clear separation between the provincial election. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, the municipalities pay for their elections, so it's not a cost to the province necessarily. So to allow municipalities to select cities in particular, because I think the towns and villages like their connection to the rural municipalities, and we respect that. In fact, we were advocating for sort of two sets of elections: keep the villages and towns mostly with the rural municipalities, but the cities should have a clear separation. So we certainly advocated for that. Without divulging our advocacy strategies post-election, I think that might come back.
One of the big events that happened for the municipalities, particularly for Suma during this election, was your municipal forum that you hosted with a representative of the Saskatchewan NDP and the Saskatchewan Party, Laurie Carr from the Honourable Laurie Carr from the Saskatchewan Party, and I'm forgetting Erica Ritchie from the Saskatchewan NDP. Going out of that forum, did you hear anything from your members that they were hoping to be addressed during that forum?
I haven't heard from the members necessarily. I think the questions were that Randy Golden asks were pointed and really reflected our advocacy, and we got good answers from both parties, but at the end of the day, it really boils down to who's going to form government, and then we can take it from there. Really, but
Dale, what's the path to victory for the Saskatchewan Party tonight?
Well, they need to hang on to seats in Regina and Saskatoon. Regina is for sure a tougher path forward for them, but if they can hang on to at least a couple, maybe even three, I think that would be a great sign for them. Saskatoon, same thing. If they can hang on to 4, even 5 seats, I think they could end up having at least a pretty good night. But they also need to hang on to seats in the Battlefords, Yorkton, a couple of other places, but yeah, they need to be strong where they traditionally are, which is outside of the 2 big cities. If they can pick up at least one seat in Prince Albert, that would be really good for them as well.
That's the Sask NDP,
the Sask Party.
Oh, so you think
were you asking me about the Sask Party or the NDP?
Yeah, I'm asking, but you're saying because right now the Sask Party holds both the Prince Albert seats. So
correct.
You're expecting them to potentially lose both.
Potentially, yeah. No, both party leaders, they've been in Prince Albert a lot in this campaign, and for a city that has 2 seats only, that signals to me, and I think many others, that those 2 seats are really important to the outcome here tonight. So, and Chris, just to come back to what you said about history being made tonight, I think so for the Sask Party government to have potentially a fifth straight majority. That is a huge thing for that party and for the people that work and are members of that party. I know Brad Wall's 3rd straight majority government in 2016 was a big deal at the time because that had been the first 3-term conservative government in the province's history. I think going back to Walter Scott, who was our province's first premier. So it could be a big night in terms of history.
For the NDP, their path leads through Prince Albert, Moose Jaw, Saskatoon, Regina, possibly the Battlefords.
Yeah.
Do they have to try and pick up some of these rural seats as well?
Yeah, I mean they need every possible seat that they can get their hands on.
Is there one that they're more looking at than others?
Rurally,
yes.
Like rural seats.
When we say rural, in the sense that Saskatchewan,
they've been banging on White City Qu'Appelle, which would be a real surprise if the Sask Party does not win that seat. But outside of that, I mean, maybe I don't think the Battlefords would be considered rural. It's certainly, Battlefords and then North Battleford, which are the cities,
urban, yeah.
bigger urban cities. But yeah, Saskatchewan Rivers, I think, is maybe the other one where they're hoping that Sask United and the Sask Party would split the vote, and maybe the NDP gets 33%. But those are kind of the two that I'm thinking I don't think either are really realistic, but those are maybe what they have their eye on.
This would be a momentous occasion if she as in Carla Beck, wins tonight as well, because she would be the first female premier of this province. That's got to be weighing on her shoulders, because I can imagine being this close and potentially at that finish line and about to pass it. She's got a lot of weight on her shoulders then.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, I mean it's tough. There's a lot of pressure to be the first to do anything. I doubt if I have ever been the first to do anything, but no, it's she. I mean, speaking of history, she has the potential to do it tonight. The NDP, they've really pushed hard in this campaign. I think overall they've run a very good campaign, and they should be proud of it. And if they don't win tonight, it seems like they're going to pick up several seats where they'll be in pretty good position for 2028.
With more focus on urban cities and urban communities this election, this is prime time for Suma to potentially get their message out more than it traditionally in closer elections. With the focus of this election being on the Prince Alberts, the Moose Jaws, the Regina, and the Saskatoons, did Suma see more advocacy pressure because you now have the focus on your urban centers?
I wouldn't say that. I think our strategies has been always consistent with our approach with one-on-one with cabinet ministers and other MLAs. We've instituted an MLA advocacy strategy a couple of years ago, and that's to share our message not just with cabinet ministers but with the caucus in general, both sides actually, both with the NDP and the Sask Party. So I don't think that there's necessarily a focus more on the urban. We're just advocating urban issues to whoever wants to listen to us.
So we should note that it is now past 8 o'clock, so polls have officially closed across the province. I'm assuming if you are still in line, if you're listening to us, please stay in the line, because you can still vote if you were lined up prior to 8 o'clock, because every vote will matter, as we just saw in BC. Before we cut to our first break here, I do want to give sort of a moment for John, Mark, and Dale to give their final thoughts before we start seeing election results trickle in here. So, Dale, we'll start with you. For you, what 28 days later, candidates now, it's all out of their hands.
Yeah.
What happens?
Lots of waiting on pins and needles. I mean, for candidates, the candidates in particular, today is kind of a nightmare because you can't do anything. You have teams that are going to door knock and get the final people out to vote for you. There's a lot of waiting around, a lot of anxiety. As a former campaign volunteer and staffer, that certainly applies to the people that work on the campaign. So I'm really interested to see what the results are going to be here. It's exciting.
John, Mark, from a Suma perspective, you put everything on the table, and we're now at the aftermath. Your work now begins, doesn't it?
The work begins. The reset of our advocacy begins. But honestly, it really will work with any party, quite frankly. Both have their messages. We can see ourselves in both of the messages. So we'll just adjust our advocacy and start advocating on behalf of our members.
Awesome. So we'll be right back in about 10 to 15 minutes. So about 8:20 we'll be back. Hopefully we'll have some results. It might just be Dale and I, or it might be just John, Mark, and I. But we'll be back in about 15 minutes, everyone. Stay tuned. help if I turned it up. Welcome back, everyone, and we are back with Dale Richardson. We're going to be talking about some of the ridings that we're going to be watching over the next few hours. Dale, let's start north and we'll head our way south. So let's start with Saskatoon Stonebridge. Cabinet Minister, Attorney General, Bronwyn Irie?
Bronwyn.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Why is this one that you're watching?
Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, there's a number of seats in both Saskatoon and Regina, like we said in our last segment, that they'll just be a bit more difficult for the Sask Party. This constituency has new boundaries for this election. So previously, Bronwyn had been elected twice in 2016 and 2020 in Stonebridge, Dakota, which included the neighborhood of Stonebridge, which is a sprawling neighborhood in the south of Saskatoon, but it also included rural towns and parts of the province south of Saskatoon as well, which was obviously very, very strong Sask Party support. Now the new boundaries are just Stonebridge in Saskatoon and a few other neighborhoods in Saskatoon proper. So it's just, demographics I think are just a little bit more challenging this time for Bronwyn. The challenger, Darcy Warrington, I believe is his name. He's a teacher. The NDP, obviously, they've been focusing on education quite a bit the last number of years. So just kind of, the momentum that the NDP has maybe built up in the last couple of weeks and during the campaign, coupled with the boundaries in Saskatoon Stonebridge, could make this a bit of a more challenging race for Bronwyn tonight.
We should note, for those who are watching on YouTube, you might see a list of logos and some numbers. Those are the results as they're going to be trickling in from Election Saskatchewan. So as Election Saskatchewan updates their election results, our numbers will be updated as well. So you'll know when we know. The NDP needs to win seats like Stonebridge to potentially form the next government.
Yep.
We look at some of the ridings here in Regina, which we're broadcasting, and I want to start with Regina University. I was just down there. That's where my hotel is, so I was actually in the area while I was driving around. You should never trust signs because signs do not vote, but it is a battle out there between the Cabinet Minister of Social Services and the NDP candidate there. Why is this a riding that you're watching?
I'd say, again, because of in part, at least, because of new boundaries in this election. So this constituency where Jean Mikowski for the Sask Party is running, the boundaries go a bit more into the previous constituency of Regina University, which the neighborhoods a bit more favorable to the NDP. Mikowski's former constituency went a bit further kind of southeast in Regina, for him, more favorable Sask Party territory. So the boundaries have just changed a bit. The NDP, though, for this constituency, they have put a lot of resources into this.
Star candidate in this riding as well.
Sally Hauser, probably, she's become a friend of mine. She used to do the Scoop podcast with me. Sally Hauser probably is about as close to a star candidate as the NDP probably has in this election, and she's, no question about it, she's a fantastic candidate because she understands politics. She's been around it for a long time for the NDP. I think I said on the air when we did the podcast, I would not want to run a campaign against Sally Hauser because, quite frankly, she scares me politically. She knows what she's doing, but she has a big network in the party, not just in this province, but outside, pretty much around Canada for the NDP. She's brought in a lot of people from outside of Saskatchewan to do some final door knocking tonight and in the last couple of days. I think the combination of new boundaries, maybe some incumbency challenges for Jean Mikowski and the Sask Party, and a very solid candidate in Sally Hauser could be a tough one tonight.
Could Sally potentially be cabinet material if the NDP do form?
Probably, I think so.
Because she has a long history with not even just the local Saskatchewan NDP, but also federally NDP as well.
Yeah. She was Rachel Notley's press secretary as well. She worked for Jack Layton. She's a seasoned political operative, definitely.
In the last riding that we want to talk about before I start asking you some of the tough questions that I have about what's going to go on is Regina Rochdale, and that is Laura Ross, and she is the cabinet minister for Parks, Culture, and Sports. Right. This is a riding, again, we talk about how Scott Moe, if he wants to win a comfortable majority or even a majority, he needs to win ridings like this. Why is this one that's on your watch list?
This one, I don't think the boundaries have changed that much in this election. I think it just comes down to Regina. It's just, Regina is the home of government. The legislative building is here. People, I think if there is an anti-Sask Party kind of lean in this campaign, this is probably one of the seats where it's going to show up. Laura Ross, she's been an MLA and cabinet minister for a long time for the Sask Party. Very capable female leader in the Sask Party government. But again, if there is winds of change, this just might be one of the seats where it could show up in this city.
We are getting note that my microphone is low. I understand that. We are trying to work through the technical difficulties as well. So I will try and speak up a little bit louder. I apologize to Dale. It might hurt your ears.
No, you
but
can.
They can hear me. It's just a little bit low, so I will probably speak up a little bit louder. So Saskatoon, Regina, two big cities that are going to play a major factor into how big a majority or who forms the next government.
Yeah.
But there are seats, and we talked about them in our opening, that are going to be up for play that the two leaders have been playing a lot in. Prince Albert, Moose Jaw. Mm-hmm. These demographics have changed a lot. In Prince Albert, one of the two seats have flipped in 2020, 2016. Yep. In Moose Jaw, we have to go back to, I think if I'm not mistaken, 2011, 2007, when the last time the NDP picked up a seat there. Does the NDP have a path to victory if they do not win any of these four seats in either Prince Albert or Moose Jaw?
It makes it hard. It makes it hard for them to win for sure. Yeah, no, they definitely want to win both seats in Prince Albert, which is possible for them, I think. Although I know the Sask Party, they have put a lot of resources, a lot of personnel into both of those seats in Prince Albert during this campaign. A lot of people have been up there working hard. Moose Jaw, I think Moose Jaw Wakamo is the one that's up for grabs. I think Minister Tim McLeod in Moose Jaw North, my understanding at least is that nobody's comfortable ever in politics, nor should they be, but I think it's a bit of a safer bet for Moose Jaw North. But yeah, no, the NDP, there's a reason why Carla Beck and various members of her team have been in Moose Jaw and in Prince Albert many times during this campaign and leading up to it. They want to win all seats there.
This is Lauren Calvert's old stomping grounds as well. Moose
Jaw. At one point, yeah, he was in Saskatoon Riversdale as well, I believe. Yeah.
So, in this election, there's also new ridings that have been formed. One particular that I want to talk about is Martensville Blairmore, which is just on the northwest part of Saskatoon, but also goes into the community of Martensville. The deputy mayor, current deputy mayor, she is resigning as of the next election. She won't be a deputy mayor there. Jamie Martins, who her namesake is the Martins namesake. She is running for the Saskatchewan Party, hoping to bring that into the fold. They also have a strong NDP candidate because in that community as well, in that riding, I should say. Does this riding is urban-rural split? And I say urban-rural because Martensville isn't traditionally a large metropolitan like Saskatoon. No. It's a smaller community. Does the Saskatchewan Party have a path to win this seat with the candidate that they have, but also with the tightness that we're seeing across the province right now?
Certainly, yeah. No, I think Jamie Martins is probably favored in that constituency.
I should note she's a good friend of mine. I know her. Yeah. I've chatted with her numerous times. Love her to death. So I'm just putting that on the record.
No, I think I think if she doesn't win, I think it would be a pretty big surprise. Blairmore, which is the neighborhood of the namesake of this new constituency, it's a relatively new neighborhood in Saskatoon. It's I think I'd have to go back in previous elections. I would think that it likely went Sask Party in terms of votes. Martensville, it's a young community. A lot of kind of people like my age. I'm not that old. I might look at, but a lot of younger families that live there. But it's also rural. I mean, there's communities outside of Martensville and the neighborhood of Blairmore that are in that constituency, and they would, I expect, would vote Sask Party.
What happens? We talk about urbans, but there's a few rural ridings that a lot of the political pundits are watching right now.
Yep.
And that one that I particularly want to talk about, which we talked about a little bit beforehand, is White City Quapella. This is Brad Crasweller, who is the former councillor for the RM of Sherwood. He is running for the Saskatchewan Party. I was just up that area, and there is some play for the Saskatchewan NDP. Again, if you go by signs, what are you hearing on the ground?
Yeah, again, I think it would be a result if it did go to the NDP. I think it would be surprising. Don McMorris, he was the MLA for this area, or most of it, since 1999, so 25 years, and held it by very wide margins. The kind of one wrinkle to this election, I suppose, would be this change room policy that came up in the third week in the campaign, and it stemmed from an issue at a school in Balgony, which is in White City Quapel. That may be playing a certain part, and maybe the NDP think that they can pick it up. But I think again, I'd be surprised if this Sask Party did not win that constituency.
You and I talked earlier on in actually last week on Thursday about what I saw during the first 2 weeks of this campaign, which is the apathy aspect. And I'm not sure about you, but for me, when I was traveling and talking to residents of different communities, people weren't tuned in. As we got closer to the end of the campaign, even this weekend, do you find people were actually starting to engage, or was it just the people I was talking to that weren't engaged enough? Yeah,
it's going to be one of the great questions of this campaign is what is voter turnout province-wide, the total, and who, I mean, like any other campaign, which party did a better job of getting their supporters out to vote for them. I mean, that's campaigns 101. That's how you win, is you identify somebody that says they're going to vote for you, that they support you, and then on election day, you go and get them and they go and vote for you.
Traditionally, on that note, the Sask NDP have failed to try and motivate people like they were able to do in the early 2000s, even late 1990s.
Yeah.
This election, Carla Beck has kind of changed the way that the Sask NDP have worked around. Do you think that Carla Beck was able to energize the Saskatchewan NDP base to bring people out to the doors, or are we just going to have to wait until we see some results trickling in here?
I think we're going to have to wait to see the results, because we were talking off mic earlier. I don't actually think that voter turnout in advanced polls was that significant. So I am curious as to whether total turnout for this election is going to surpass what it was in 2020. It might. I mean, there needed to be 200,000 people that came out to vote today, just on election day. But no, so certainly I think in terms of motivating one's base, I think Ms. Beck has done a very good job for the NDP. Keeping in mind that on the Sask Party side of things, they have decades now of supporter data that's built into their operations. The Sask Party knows where their historical supporters are. They know which houses they're at, or they know how to contact them in various forms. So again, it all comes down to which of these campaigns has been able to get most of their supporters out most.
So early voting, according to Elections Saskatchewan, 273,010 Saskatchewan residents went to the polls in the early voting, about 33% increase 33% of the eligible voters of 811,000. Now, in 2020 elections, 184,000 people cast their ballots in the early voting. 2020 was a unique election,
Yep.
COVID-19. 2024, what does that number tell you? Because when I see higher than normal turnout at the election, in the advanced voting, that tells me there's a change coming. Does it tell you something different?
Maybe, but I mean, we don't know what the total votes are today, of course.
Yeah.
A similar thing happened in BC. Granted, on election day, in BC there was a torrential rainstorm, so it probably put a damper on voting. My read, as it was in BC, is that people are just getting used to voting in advance voting. In Saskatchewan, we had a full week where there were 5 days of advance voting, where, I think I voted on Wednesday this past week. It was terrific. So I do wonder if the days of old where you vote at 6 p.m. on election day and then you go and watch the results right after, I wonder if those days are behind us just for convenience, and who needs it, So, but again, we'll wait to see what the turnout is. If it is huge numbers tonight and overall, then yeah, I mean, obviously that's probably could be an indication of a change election tonight.
Are you hearing anything along that lines in your circles that you talk to?
Not particularly, honestly. Like, I don't think there's been
because in the
news reports of people lined up at the door at polling stations, but maybe there have been. I haven't seen it, but
in the last 6 elections that I went back and checked out, turnout has gone down every single election except one, and that is when Brad Wall defeated Lauren Calvert in 2007.
Change election, yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
So if people come out and vote, changes in the air. If people don't, we might be seeing Scott Moe win that coveted fifth.
Potentially, yeah, for sure.
We are still moments, if not hours, away from the first results.
Yeah, they haven't called any seats. We have one of the feeds going here. They've called none.
They have no results have even come into Sask elections here. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Scott Moe talked about Justin Trudeau more than he talked about Carla Beck, I think, because he tried to get people in the mindset that I'm the champion of Saskatchewan. I'm going to be the best to take on Justin Trudeau. This is possibly Justin Trudeau's last election that he will be Prime Minister. This will be the last year, potentially, that he's Prime Minister. Who knows what could happen in 2025 or even a month from now, depending on how his caucus votes. Did Scott Moe credibly tie Carla Beck to Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh?
It's a great question, and I think if the result is not that great for Mr. Moe and his party tonight, I think it'll be something to look back on and wonder if whether that was done effectively. They certainly tried. The interesting thing that Moe and his team did, that they decided pretty much as soon as Carla Beck became leader of the NDP 2.5 years ago, was they decided that they were not going to try and define her personally in terms of who she is, in terms of who she is as the NDP's leader. When Ryan Miley became the NDP leader in 2018, the Sask Party immediately hammered him with negative ads. Weak leadership was the headline, and I know that because I was in the Premier's office at that time, and we put together some pretty effective ads that were not good for Mr. Miley. So they chose not to do that with Ms. Beck, and instead chose to try and tie the NDP to Justin Trudeau and his government, and the Saskatchewan NDP's affiliation with the federal NDP, which I think to a certain degree that's an effective argument. Of course, the federal NDP with Jagmeet Singh, they had their semi-coalition with the Trudeau Liberals for the last number of years. They did support the carbon tax, a series of things related to, pretty strident views on oil and gas, and how the NDP, some of the federal NDP don't like it. So a whole bunch of things that Scott Moe and the Sask Party tried to connect Ms. Beck and her party, federally. But But yeah, I mean, coming back, it's a great question as to whether that was effective, and would it have been more effective to maybe target to identify Ms. Beck more affiliated with the union, kind of left-wing activist parts of her party in this province, which I think a good argument can be made. So I guess we don't know what the answer is for that yet.
Oh, we are slowly starting to get some results in here.
Yeah.
We have 7 seats for the Saskatchewan Party, 1 seat leading, and we should just say that. They are just leading in 7 seats and 1 seat for the Saskatchewan NDP. The Saskatchewan NDP, before we start looking into where these results are coming in, the Saskatchewan NDP tried to make this campaign about change. Change. Now, this is after almost 17 years of the Saskatchewan Party under Brad Wall and Scott Moe. Did they effectively take that narrative, and did people talk about it?
I think more than they have in past elections, for sure. And you know, that could be a winning argument in this election, or it could be, I guess, an effective argument, but will it be enough to carry the NDP across the finish line and to form government? We'll see. But if it didn't, I guess, what does that say potentially about the NDP's brand in this province? If not this election, 17 years in, during a campaign where Scott Moe did have some challenges. And there were certainly questions about some of his team in the last couple of years, and the NDP are not able to pull it off. Some questions could be asked about how strong, is the NDP brand and team strong enough in Saskatchewan to form government? If not now, then when?
We're going to talk about some of the results that are coming in. The first one that I want to talk about is from the riding of Cumberland, which is one of the 2 northern ridings in the province. Yeah. It's currently held by Vermont Doyle.
Doyle Vermont. Yeah, he's not running again.
He's not running, and Jordan McPhail for the Saskatchewan NDP is trying to reclaim that seat for the NDP and keep it in the NDP column. Yeah. Currently, the Saskatchewan Party is leading. Yet again, only 2 of the 37 polls are reporting, and it is still early, but 2 out of the 37 polls. This is still early moments, and I know we're still early in the days, but this is going to flip, is it not?
Flip to
the NDP back to Cumberland, or could
Doyle Vermette, he's NDP. He's held that seat for a long time.
It's one. NDP. It's Saskatchewan Party still winning.
It's a seat. I would be surprised if it went Saskatchewan Party. I do know Sask Party really likes their candidate, Greg Sieb. They've been really pleased with him. I just want to quickly make a note. We're looking at some of the results. Weyburn Bengoff. So Sask Party is in first, they'll likely win. Sask United and then Buffalo are second and third. And I think one of the things, and I've said this elsewhere, that it'll be fascinating to see is how many constituencies the NDP, if they don't win in this campaign, how many constituencies do they finish in third or even fourth? Because that result that we saw there in Weyburn in the southern part of the province is fascinating, that the NDP are not even on the board there.
So just 2 out of the 31 polls are reporting in that riding.
Yeah.
They're currently 5th out of 5 candidates. The Saskatchewan Green Party has 1 more vote than the NDP Saskatchewan. So the Saskatchewan Party has 66 and the Saskatchewan United has 24, and the Buffalo currently has 6. Still 2 of 31 polls reporting, so it is still early on. In Cypress Hills, Doug Steele is currently out with a substantial lead, 73.1% or 215 votes for Mr. Steele. He is looking to return to the legislature as the incumbent in the riding. And the Saskatchewan NDP currently have 52 votes there, and the Buffalo Party is trailing with third. Back up to my old stomping ground of Lloydminster, Colleen Young, which I remember when she became the candidate after Tim McMillan, the Minister of Rural and Remote Health.
My old boss.
You go. Colleen Young is out to a lead as well with 79% of the votes, or 62 votes, and only 2 of 28 votes currently reporting, or 2 of 28 polls reporting.
That's a layup for her there.
So there are still some coming in. I'm just looking around the province. Scott Moe is out to an early lead in his riding of Rostern Shellbrook. He has 80.5% of the 2 polls that are currently in. I know this was one that some pundits were talking about. Could the strong NDP candidate Mark Thunderchild potentially do some squeak in there and win that potential seat? But it does not look like, it's still early days, but 2 polls reporting.
Yeah, that was,
looks like Premier Moe is going to be back.
Yeah, that was terrific spin from the NDP. I got that on one CBC interview I was on, and I mean, I've done it before where we're trying to make the best out of a situation, but I said if Scott Moe loses his seat, it would be probably the greatest upset in the history of the province. But no, he's, I mean, obviously in very good position there.
So we are still seeing results trickling in. It's still early. We're going to take a 15-minute break here. We're going to look at some of the results as they come in. We're going to take a brief break for myself as well, and we'll be right back at 9 o'clock, and hopefully by then we'll have some more results coming in. So stay tuned, and we'll be back right at 9 o'clock. Welcome back to our live edition of the Municipal Affairs, broadcasting live from the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association headquarters in downtown Regina. John Mark, thank you so much for sitting with me. As results begin to trickle in a little bit faster, I want to talk about some of the advocacy work that Suma is being doing over the last 28 days and will be doing into the future. The one I want to start with, first off, is... Hold on, I apologize. John Mark's laptop has me talking a little bit loud here. The great thing about doing this live, not all the issues are my fault. There we go. I apologize for that, everyone. I want to talk about the municipal revenue sharing agreement. Now, Saskatchewan is probably one of the most sought after municipal revenue sharing agreements that provinces and territories want, because your municipal revenues come directly from the provincial sales tax. What specifically are you looking for from this next government as CEO of Suma to help address some of the municipal revenue that municipalities are looking for?
Well, status quo at the very least. We want to make sure that we maintain our 0.75 of the 1% of the PST. We recognize that it comes with the good and the bad. During the COVID years, the PST dropped a little bit, and we saw our revenue sharing drop as well, which was fine because we agreed that it would be with as the good and the bad. With the new government coming in, prior to 2017, the infamous budget where a lot of things changed, and this was prior to my arrival here at Suma. The formula changed. It used to be 1 full point of the PST that would come to municipalities. We certainly would like to go back to that level. And in addition to that, I think there's some opportunities for some of the services and products that we pay PST, we being municipalities. I'll speak to labor on construction. We pay PST on that. We feel that should stop. It's not good for municipalities to invest millions of dollars and pay back. And I'll give you an example. In Yorkton, their construction season, they saw just about $1 million go back to the province on PST for labor of construction. So those are the things that I think there's room for improvement on the program, but I want to be very clear. We're very fortunate in this province to have the municipal revenue sharing. I share with my colleagues around the country, other municipal association EDs and CEOs, and they're very envious of our program. So we want to make sure we recognize the province for the great contributions.
During the campaign, I'm assuming yourself, along with your team here at Suma, were looking through the policy platforms, looking through what the leaders were promising. Did you hear anything from the two-party leaders that gave you a little bit of a pause, or are hopeful that they have heard you when addressing this issue if they are to form government?
I mean, we heard about mental health and addiction. We heard about health issues in the province. We've got municipalities, and I'll single out Bigger, for example, where they've purchased some residences for doctors and as a means of retention. And certainly we've heard from the political parties that they want to address health care in the province, and hopefully that will help municipalities stop having to do these types of strategies. Public safety was another that we've heard from both sides. Premier Moe and his party were very adamant that we need more boots on the ground, and we certainly support that. But we also heard from the NDP with respect to getting to the root cause. And we've been advocating for a new police act in this province. The police act is literally 33 years old, and although been open from time to time to amend and add to it, the fundamentals of the act needs to be modernized. And so we've heard on both sides of the equation some of these promises, and we're looking forward to seeing how that's going to materialize for our members.
Just going back to the original municipal revenue, did you hear anything about that?
No, actually, I did not. Now, maybe I just missed it, but listen, this is a program that's been in place, quite frankly, since the early 80s. in different forms. Certainly more solidified, if you will, since 2008, 2009 with the Sask Party. So we're quite happy with it, but I haven't heard anything in this particular campaign.
One of the other advocacy areas that I want to talk about is the autonomy of municipalities, the stopping of the downloading, letting municipalities do what they are responsible for doing without the oversight of the province. Why is this a key advocacy platform for you and for Suma?
Yeah. So I have to give kudos to the government of the past, and I think it was around the 2010 mark. So obviously it would have been the Saskatchewan Party, but the municipal acts were updated in Saskatchewan, where they changed from being restrictive to more permissive. So the acts are already fairly set up to allow for the autonomy. What we're talking about when we talk about autonomy, we're really wanting to see new revenue streams come about for municipalities. I go back to the infrastructure issues, the landfills that are costing enormous amount of money. There's only one taxpayer in this province and in this country. In fact, we've got to find ways to make sure that municipalities are sustainable. And so the fact that the property tax system was created in 1849, that has got to be modernized in one way or shape or other. And so we need to really look at finding new ways to fund municipalities to make sure that they're sustainable moving forward.
What specifically areas are you looking at? What revenue sources are you looking at? Because every time I ask someone, it seems to be something different. But for Saskatchewan, is there an area that you're specifically looking at?
I mean, there's other jurisdictions in the United States, for example, where they share income tax with municipalities. There's other models out there that we could be looking at. I don't want to commit our association one way or another. I think it's a conversation we need to sit down with all our partners, Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, and the government and other associations that have a stake in ensuring that our municipalities are sustainable. I'm thinking of CEDA, for example, is another one, Saskatchewan Economic Development Alliance. I think we just need to sit down with the government and really have an honest conversation about how sustainable our municipalities are moving forward.
We jokingly talked about it at the beginning of the show, the live show here today, but your true work begins tomorrow morning. Once the new government is elected or declared elected. What do you do from an advocacy perspective, from Suma's perspective, that will be different tomorrow that you weren't doing today?
Well, first of all, we're going to reboot our priorities. We're gearing up now for our convention in 2025 in April, which will be in Saskatoon. We're going to reset our governance. As you know, we're about to change our governance structure, so we're going to reset our priorities.
What do you mean by that? Because that means to me you're going to start clean slate.
Not necessarily clean, because our resolutions are on the book for 3 years. So we're going to prioritize those. Mental health and addiction will continue being a cornerstone advocacy, because we're seeing a lot of issues, not just in the big centers. We're seeing issues in the small center as well. So we're going to continue those advocacies, strategies, but we need to go back to, because as you know, there's a municipal election on November 13th. We'll have a brand new slate of elected officials. Priorities may change with that new slate, so we need to go back and consult with our members and make sure that we have sort of the top priorities for the different sectors, and then get ready with the new cabinet once the cabinet has been appointed, and we need to start scheduling meetings with the Premier and all these different cabinet ministers that have an impact on the urban sector.
We talk about urbans, and you launched your We Are Urban campaign. What does it specifically mean to be urban in Saskatchewan? Because there might be some confusion out there, because there are so many municipalities in this province. You are one of the largest provinces with the most, one of the provinces with the most municipalities. So in Suma's definition, what is an urban municipality?
Well, in fact, the definition comes from the Municipal Act. A town is a community with between 0 and 4,999 of population. Villages between 0 and 499. So the Act is very, very prescriptive when it comes to what is an urban, what is a rural municipalities, what is a northern community, a northern municipality. So We Are Urban campaign was really to celebrate our municipalities, our members, that are the economic hub in the regions, that provide the services that the schools, the hospitals, the libraries, the recreation centers. So really was to celebrate their contribution to rural Saskatchewan or the regions in Saskatchewan. And so we're really wanting to highlight the great work that these municipalities are doing to provide to citizens and Saskatchewanians in general.
And did you hear good feedback from your campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a great response. We partnered with a company here in Moose Jaw called Memories Keeper, and there's been a significant contribution to again to celebrate what those important events or structures in the province. So yeah, it's been a very good campaign. I think we're going to continue. I don't think it's a one-shot deal. It's something that we need to continue to reinforce with the different agencies and the government in particular that, you know, urban municipalities are important in this province, and we want to make sure that they're well celebrated and recognized for their contributions.
You talk about the transition period for this next government, but while your work from the advocacy perspective starts tomorrow and resetting and trying to figure out what the new crop of councillors, mayors will be asking for after they're elected in November, what does Suma do in the transition period between now and the municipal elections later on in November, which I believe is November 12th? 13th, Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be...
because we're here at the Suma, and I know you're getting ready for elections and you're helping municipalities out, but after that's all done, do you just have to wait now and see what's going to happen in these communities?
There's a bit of a wait time. There's no doubt about that, because we don't know what the cabinet's going to look like. We're certainly going to reach out to the Premier's office as soon as we can to start scheduling those meetings. And again, as you said, there's a bit of a waiting period between now and November 13th. Quite frankly, till probably December 1st, because it takes about a week or two before everybody gets sworn in after the elections in November. But certainly, we're just going to continue gearing up, switching gears from an election platform to post-election and getting our strategies in place.
And how does Suma work with members? Because you are the advocacy group, you're going to be meeting with the ministers, but what else does Suma do for your members that are across this great province, from the southern tip to all the way into the northern communities?
Well, that's a very good question. Listen, advocacy is the first and foremost priority for us. That's what keeps me up at night, and that's the type of work that we do really well here. But we also have our group benefit program. So we offer a group purchasing program through a partner called Kinetic GPO. We do group benefit, group programming, insurance, and so on. So we're quite connected that way to support our members. They have to stretch the dollars as best they can, and so every time we can find efficiencies for them by way of these group purchasing organizations, I think that's a great opportunity for them. And we also do a lot of education. Our convention is our primary event, but we have webinars and podcasts. Our regional meetings are all opportunities for members to network, to share, to learn from each other, to learn from some of the speakers we bring on board. So really, those are the three pillars of our organization, advocacy being the front and foremost.
What's in store for 2025? I know this is a big year for you with the governance changes in Suma, but you always got to be looking at the future and what metrics you're putting into place. So from an organizational standpoint, before we talk about the municipal standpoint, what's in store for Suma?
Believe it or not, it's 120 years next year that Suma has been in existence, been working on behalf of the membership across the province. So we're gearing up for a big convention in 2025, 120th anniversary. The change in our governance structure, where the caucus will be driving a lot of our advocacy and the priorities, and continuing to listen to the membership. So it's a big year next year, but we're very much geared and ready to make that happen.
And what about for the member municipalities? Because we talk about the challenges that municipalities are often dealing with. We talk about we talk about municipal revenue sharing, we talk about infrastructure challenges. What's in store for municipalities in 2025?
Well, we're waiting to see what the government's going to come out with, the new infrastructure program.
So you're waiting for tonight, then, I'm assuming.
No, no. This is the federal government. We're still waiting to hear back from the federal government with respect to the infrastructure dollars. We're happy with the formerly the gas tax, the Canada Building Fund. Those are dollars that will help our municipalities with funding. Hopefully the provincial government will come out with some new funding for municipalities. And as I said, infrastructure is a big water, sewer. If you don't have water and sewer in your community, you're in deep trouble. As Doug Griffiths with his book on 13 Ways to Kill Your Community will tell you. So those are big challenges for municipalities, and we're just going to continue supporting them in their efforts to continue supporting their citizens.
So we will be back in about 10 minutes with Dale as we are getting more results in here. John Mark, always a pleasure. We'll be back in a few minutes. Perfect. And we'll be talking to John Mark as the night goes on. So stay with us, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. It's going to say 15 minutes, but we'll be back in 10. Welcome back to the live edition of the Municipal Affairs. I'm Christopher Brown, and we are joined back by Dale Richardson, founder and editor of the Scoop Political Briefing, and also principal.
Not partner quite yet. Not yet.
After this, you'll be partner. Principal at Earnscliffe Strategies. Dale, results are slowly trickling in now. We've got about 5% of the results in, according to Saskatchewan elections. Yeah. And we have about 26 leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party, 6 leading and elected for the NDP of Saskatchewan. I know it's still early with only 5% of the polls reporting, but any surprises so far? There has been one defeat of a sitting MLA, but any surprises from your perspective?
Yeah, I think Athabasca, Jim LeMag, he seems to be on his way to defeat to the NDP candidate. So in the northwestern part of the province, Mr. LeMag, he won a by-election in 2022, which really was the reason why former NDP leader Ryan Miley, that by-election that basically ended Miley's political career. So yeah, that's it doesn't really even look that competitive either, to be honest. So
from the results right now, the NDP are technically elected according to some of the results that I'm watching, and it is 671 votes for the NDP and 225 for the Saskatchewan Party, and CBC has called Athabasca for the Saskatchewan NDP.
I think that's pretty interesting. The other one we're just keeping an eye on is White City Qu'Appelle. I haven't seen it come across CBC's results here yet, but Chris has got it here. Yeah, it's quite close. The NDP's up by about 50 votes. So we'll see how that transpires. How many polls were so far on that?
29 polls currently reporting.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I'm assuming that those are in probably the town of White City and like maybe some of the bigger communities in that constituency. But yeah, I'm besides that, I mean, so far the Saskatchewan Party have in the rural constituencies, they've already been elected in a number of them, which I mean confirms that they're extremely strong in the rural constituencies in the province. As well, I think I mentioned this in the last segment I was on. This Sask United Party doesn't seem to be a factor at all. Or no, actually, we talked about. I was wondering where the NDP would finish in third potentially, keeping an eye on that still. But the Sask United Party, they appear to be finishing in third in a number of constituencies, and are. You might have the total vote percentage in front of you, Chris, but it's
6.5% of the total vote in so far is Saskatchewan United Party, which you thought could play a factor in some of these NDP getting to third or fourth places in some of the rural areas.
Yeah, definitely, and potentially if the Sask United Party performed very well, potentially just making the path difficult for some of these rural constituencies. But the one I think that the NDP was maybe keeping their eye on was Saskatchewan Rivers, north of Prince Albert, where former Sask Party caucus member Nadine Wilson had been the MLA. She got bounced out of the Sask Party caucus, joined the Sask United Party, and I believe things are looking very well for Sask Party candidate
Eric Schmaltz, who is the Reeve of the RM of Prince Albert, is currently leading with 51% of the vote. Nadine Wilson is trailing with 12% of the vote.
Yeah, so that is a particularly interesting result. And again, I mean, speaks to one of the things I think that is, and I've said this before in on other podcasts and other shows, Chris, is people, I think, got a bit over their skis on the Sask United Party. In some ways for good reason, because they wondered if they would threaten the Sask Party. They've certainly made the Sask Party move on certain things and probably shift to the right. But when it comes to running campaigns and winning elections, it is so hard as an upstart, basically a startup political party, because you don't have the data. The Sask Party, they have decades now. They have 25 plus years of of data in terms of supporters, historical supporters, people that that voted for them in the past. Maybe they can access them again. They've got fundraising data. They just have so much information and operations built in. And the Sask United Party, they just don't have that. It takes years and years and decades to get up to a fully functioning political party. So I think that'll be something to watch for the media in terms of their coverage coming out of this. Is maybe there was a bit too much focus on the Sask United Party, but I guess we'll see how things go here still.
So I just got a message from someone who's been following along with us from Twitter saying there's going to be about a 40-minute delay in results from Saskatoon and Regina, which we've seen. We are about an hour in, and we're still waiting for results from the majority of the seats in Saskatoon and Regina, and if I'm still waiting on results in Moose Jaw, and even if I'm not mistaken, one of the ridings in Prince Albert have currently been called for the. No, it hasn't been called yet. I apologize. In Prince Albert, I'm just pulling it up, Northcott, and Lana Ross is currently leading with 330 votes to 274 votes for the Saskatchewan NDP, which Nicole Rancourt, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think she's trying to return to the legislature because she got defeated by Alana in the 2020 election.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is a rematch from 2020. Exactly right. Yeah, and just on the slower voting count, that's something that I've been hearing from folks as well at various campaigns, and votes are being counted by hand, which is annoying, but they're humans take just a bit longer than machines apparently. So no, it's annoying, but that's just how things are going right now, I guess.
So I want to go back to Weyburn
Bengoff
for a second,
because
this was the one area that you wanted to talk about where the NDP were going to fall in some of these rural ridings. Now, last time we did look, the NDP were actually at the bottom of the list out of the 5 candidates. They have moved up into the 3rd place. So are you expecting, I hate to say polls are going to be wrong, but are you expecting the pundits, the political class that we're expecting this big swell of ground support for the United Party, but also the NDP in more rural ridings to potentially be wrong?
Well, I think it's pretty clear the Sask United Party there's not a groundswell for them. Too early to tell for the NDP and how their results are gonna go here. They're as we discussed, they're gonna do very well in Regina. And likely pick up some seats in Saskatoon as well. But as the night goes on here, I'll be really watching for how have the campaigns done in terms of getting out their supporters, particularly if it's close in. We're starting to see some results come in from Regina here, so
which I was just going to ask you about, because Regina University, 3 of the 10 polls are reporting now. Sally Hauser has a 237-125 lead over Social Services Minister Makowski. This was a riding that you were going to be watching. Seems like you might be right, and she might be heading to the ledge if these still hold. It's still early, and I know it's still early.
Yeah, and if that's the case, if Sally wins that constituency, I don't think that will be a surprise to people on either from either of the 2 main parties, including the Sask Party. They've known that they'll be in tough in that constituency for sure. So it's looking, at least in the first few polls, like Sally has a very solid lead there.
Health Minister out in Swift Current, he looks like he's cruising for re-election, and I'm just pulling up his name so I can get his last name.
Everett Hindley.
Everett. I knew it was Everett, but I forgot it was Henley. This is Brad Wall's old riding. This is basically Sask Party stronghold now, because it's been held since Brad Wall was there, and even before then for the Progressive Conservatives. Yeah,
there's always kind of around election time that folks in the NDP, I don't know if it's just head fakes.
Wishful thinking?
Yeah, wishful. I like head fake a bit better. That and every party does this, right? It's part of the strategy to, kind of feign that they're competitive in certain seats where they're just not. Okay, so they've called Athabasca now for Lalaberty, the NDP candidate. So there you go. Swift Current is very, very strong Saskatchewan Party. Brad Wall, you said he was premier and the MLA there for almost 20 years. So that would have been a real shock if they had not done well. But Everett, he's a very solid cabinet minister. He worked for Brad for a long time. People know him, and looks like he's on the way to win there.
So as of right now, we have 27 leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party, 6 leading and elected according to Sask Elections, and that is Sask Elections that I'm going by. I'm not going by any of the things that we're watching or any websites, but according to Sask Elections, 27 leading elected for the Saskatchewan Party, for the Saskatchewan NDP, 6, and no other party has a seat currently leading and elected. If this holds up, we are cruising to another majority government for the Saskatchewan Party, and we're still early hours, but it does not look good for the Saskatchewan NDP to potentially pull a victory out here.
Yeah, the Sask Party look to be in at least a majority territory. At least according to Election Sask, I'm looking over your shoulder at the official results, or sort of official, 27 to 6. CBC has it at 30-7, leading or elected. So, no, I think the Sask Party appears to be in majority territory. Again, what's the margin though? Will be very. I'll be keen to see, of course. The results from Regina and Saskatoon are slowly coming in. And Lumsden Morris, just coming back to Sask United Party thing, Blaine McLeod, he's up big, and Lumsden Morris, John Romick, the leader for Sask United Party, he's in third. He wasn't even close. So Mr. Romick's vanity project is probably over, I think. And again, just coming back to it, like it takes more than just one guy with some of his own money to create a true political movement and a political party. So that looks like the interesting state there.
Yeah, so we just refreshed, and it is 30 seats leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party and 12 leading and elected for the Saskatchewan NDP. Just turning to some of the Saskatoon ridings of Saskatoon, Meewasin, where was a by-election because that was Ryan Miley's old stomping ground.
Yeah.
The Saskatchewan Party is currently leading by one vote, I should say that, by one vote, 43 votes to 42 votes, over Nathaniel Teed. I just wanted to make sure I read that correctly. Yeah. He was the first openly gay Saskatchewan MLA in the legislature. He did win that, and it was relatively not a close win, but it was a successful win for the
he won that
NDP.
one quite easily. Yeah.
Still early hours for that. I'm just looking around here again. We still have nothing from Moose Jaw. Hopefully something comes in. Mm-hmm. So in Regina, Pasqua, the Saskatchewan Party MLA is currently leading there. So in literally the riding that we're sitting in right now, the Sask Party is leading. Just looking at Wisconsin
and that'll be one to watch. Pasqua, I think. I mean, it was close, and it's been close. It's since 2016 when Mohammed Fayez was first elected for the Saskatchewan Party. It was close last election. I'd imagine it'll be very close now tonight. So if Mr. Fayez is able to come out on top, that's a very important seat for the Saskatchewan Party. What are we looking at here?
Regina, Wisconsin Plains. The Christine Tell, the Minister of Environment, is currently trailing her NDP rival, 306 votes for the NDP and 288 for the Saskatchewan Party. 3 of 11 polls reporting.
All right.
Seems like as I go around Regina, the Sask Party is being shut out of Regina besides Pasqua right now. Laura Ross up in Rochdale is currently trailing Joan Pratchler. I apologize if I pronounced that name wrong, for the NDP, 268 to 264. So just a 4-vote lead with 3 of the 11 polls reporting. This election, polls became a big topic of conversation on social media in the last few weeks. Still early days. I know that's what you're going to say, but I've got to ask the question, did pollsters potentially get this wrong?
No, I mean, I guess we don't know that yet because, I mean, the NDP theoretically could blow things out of the water in both Regina and Saskatoon, and they could be at a point where they do get they do in the popular vote or they get a higher vote percentage, but the Saskatchewan Party just performs better, in the rural constituencies, and picks up a few in Saskatoon and a couple elsewhere, and they can win. So I mean, I think it will be interesting to see these closer results that might could be the case in Regina. Looks like there's a few so far with polls coming in that could be tight, even in former Sask Party strongholds like Regina, Wascana Plains, and in Saskatoon as well. I think we've hardly seen any in Saskatoon in terms of constituencies that are a bit more, kind of battleground, like Saskatoon Stonebridge or Saskatoon Westview, Saskatoon Southeast potentially as well. So we'll see here, Chris.
So we are an hour and 46 minutes after polls close. The Saskatchewan NDP are leading and elected in 13 seats. They had 14 at dissolution as of this morning before the votes closed. This is much better than their 2020 result already because they only had 13 seats. Carla Beck seemed to has done something that maybe potentially Cam Broughton and Ryan Miley weren't able to. It does not seem like she's been able to build in her rural base, which she played really strongly to when she first was elected, talking about how she grew up on a farm and she grew up in rural Saskatchewan. Does the Saskatchewan NDP have a rural issue looking at the results tonight?
Yeah, clearly.
Because they were the party of the farmers under Tommy Douglas. Yeah. And then it seems like
decades ago. Since I've been around, I'm 36. I haven't been alive when the NDP has been competitive in rural Saskatchewan. Not since I've been alive, but since I've been aware of politics. They've just been a non-factor. But I mean, for many, many years, the NDP, they did win rural constituencies, largely due to the fact that the vote on the right was split by the PC Party and the Liberal Party in this province. Then the Sask Party formed because they were tired of the votes on the right being split and the NDP coming up the middle, and that's not been the case really since. So yeah, I don't know how the NDP breaks into rural Saskatchewan. I think clearly, based on the seats and on the results we've seen so far, people in those communities, they don't think the NDP understands their way of life. They don't understand the industries that are critical to the communities in the province, like agriculture. I think in particular, Ms. Beck, she's, I think, really tried to make an effort to lean on her roots coming from Lang, Saskatchewan. But it's a hard sell when you've lived in Regina Lakeview for most of your adult life. It's a problem for the NDP, obviously. I mean, another question is, do they view it as a problem, or are they going to be satisfied with, I mean, potentially sweeping or doing very well in the cities, and they're fine with that?
On the flip side, yet again, the polls in a lot of these major urban centers, Regina, Saskatchewan, Yorkton, Moose Jaw, and looking one of these seats up in Prince Albert, have still yet to come in. It might look like the Sask Party has an urban issue as well, playing to the urban base and winning these seats in Regina, Saskatoon. Yet again, we're still waiting for the other major cities to come in.
Yep.
what does Scott Moe need to do if he becomes premier to extend that olive branch to the urban centers?
Yeah, it's probably for me personally, and I hope it is for others. I think one of the most important questions coming out of this campaign, Chris. I think those of us who have been around Sask Party politics, I think, look back maybe a bit too fondly on. I mean, as we should in many ways, but we look back a bit too much on the years when Brad Wall was premier. But I'll just say this quickly. It's widely believed that Brad Wall took the Sask Party to the next level and helped them get elected in 2007 by winning so-called soccer mums in Regina and Saskatoon. Call them hockey moms, or I mean, just really moms with school-aged kids who play sports and just do stuff. Moms. But he kind of shaped the narrative and the messaging in that campaign or leading up to it of, you don't need to be scared of us. We're not going to do anything that is going to turn you off. We're going to focus on the issues that matter to you and to your household. And that's, I'm about to be a dad right away here. And that's
literally moments.
It could be right away. My wife could be texting me right now saying, we got to go there, Bubs. And actually she did text me, so maybe I should look at that soon. They were positioned as, focusing on healthcare and education and making life just a little bit easier for you. So, I mean, I think that there have been a few things in the last couple of years, mostly on the social issue side of things, that we'll see the results here, but maybe has turned off some of those hockey moms or soccer moms in Regina and Saskatoon. I had identified for a while that maybe the Sask Party has some issues with women voters in that regard, and that needs to be addressed. But that's certainly a conversation. It's one of the conversations that people in the Sask Party should be having after this election.
So before we go to our next break, just want to break down the results, or as election Saskatchewan has them. 31 leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party, 13 seats leading and elected for the Saskatchewan New Democrats, with just under 10% of the votes counted. That's 10% only counted so far.
Jeez.
And roughly about 82,000. That's not even including the advance voting, which almost topped 272,000, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember. So we still got a long night. We're probably not going to be covering all the night, but right now, if things were to hold, with 31 seats leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party in the province of Saskatchewan, we are looking like it could be heading to a majority government for Scott Moe. That would be the second election that he was able to win, his first in 2020. But we will be back in about 15 minutes, so about 10 after 10, and hopefully we'll have a lot more results and we'll be able to break that down and hopefully make a call. But by the way that things are rolling out right now, could be a little bit longer. So we'll be right back in about 10 to 15 minutes, everyone. Hey everyone, we are back live from the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association headquarters in downtown Regina. I am Christopher Brown, your host of Municipal Affairs, cross-border interviews, and co-host of the Political Trenches Local Government at Work. Now, we have a few guests that are going to be calling in over the next hour, and they're going to be coming in via Zoom. So we're going to be waiting for them to call in here in a few seconds. So this next few minutes is going to be touch and go while we try to set up the Zoom call with them. So if we do tune out and then come back in, we do apologize, but we just want to make sure we do this correctly and get everyone situated. We are currently leading and elected for the Saskatchewan Party at 32 seats. For the Saskatchewan New Democrats, 25 leading and elected. When we left you at about 10 to 10, there was about 9% of the total vote in. That has gone up to 16%. So we are seeing more results slowly trickling in as we pass the 2-hour mark after polls close. So we are still waiting for results to come in. So we're going to be taking about a 10-minute break here. So please stay with us as we will be back with a guest live via Zoom, and we'll be talking to a mayor about what we're seeing and what the local reaction from his riding. So we'll be right back after a quick message and we set this up. So be right back, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to the cross-border interviews. I need to actually turn that on. I apologize. Hold on 2 seconds, everyone. And welcome back to the cross-border interviews. 2 seconds, everyone. We apologize. I thought I had this all set up, but I guess I did not. Mike, can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
And I'm just going to turn. 2 seconds, everyone. There we go. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by getting your initial reactions. For those who don't know, Mike is from Torquay, the mayor of Torquay. So, Mike, what is your initial thoughts on this election result so far?
Well, I guess I would say, in my opinion, the polls were wrong. I know we have Sask Party leading in quite a few seats, and the Democrats following up. But I actually thought some of the third party parties would actually have polled better. So just those numbers alone are interesting to me, and it looks like we're headed for Sask Party majority again, which I think at the end of the day, a lot of this vote here says that people are a little unhappy with what the Sask Party's been doing the last 4 years.
What do you mean by that? As a mayor of a small community in Saskatchewan, southern Saskatchewan, was there anything that you were hoping that the Saskatchewan Party under Scott Moe or even the Saskatchewan NDP under Carla Beck would address in this campaign that they didn't?
Well, it's one of those things that when you're in a small community, you kind of hear from everybody about everything. It doesn't matter if it's federal, provincial, or municipal politics, but you kind of get thrown everything at you. And a lot of the talk lately has been about healthcare and just being able to find a doctor. And I know both parties have a plan for how they were going to address that, but I would have thought there would have been more of a focus and more of a partnership between all levels and a discussion about that, and even just outlining more of their policies. And I think there was some hiccups in both parties' campaigns in the last couple of weeks that kind of threw them off what their message was for the last 3-4 weeks before that. So hopefully in the future we'll hear more about the Sask Party plan going forward.
You talk about healthcare being a top priority for smaller rural communities, including yourself, smaller urban rural communities, I should say. Looking at the results, your current MLA, Lori Carr, is back in as the MLA for your area. Are you hoping before you leave as mayor of your amazing community of Torquay, will you be able to have a sit down with her before your term comes to an end here in November?
Yeah, I would hope that. I think one of the things we've heard in our area, and for my community, my closest hospital is Estevan. One of the things we've really heard a lot about is an MRI that was at first turned down by the provincial government. A lady had stepped forward and promised to donate $2 million to the hospital for an MRI, and it was turned down. And after some discussion with some pretty vocal municipal leaders and residents in the area, it's going to come to fruition, but the price tag has gone up. And I think ultimately the discussion has to be had with our MLA and ultimately the government about how we fund healthcare in the future, and should we be using municipal tax dollars to help fund that when we know that's funded by property taxes, which is meant to fix roads, to fix water infrastructure, pipes in the ground, culverts. It was never meant to pay for doctors, pay for healthcare, pay for those kind of equipment that we need in healthcare that are really expensive. So I think that discussion really needs to happen.
One of the areas that John Mark Nadeau, CEO of Suma, and I had in our conversation in the second part of the show tonight was about infrastructure funding. A lot of smaller communities like your own are struggling with municipal revenue and even getting infrastructure dollars to increase service levels in your community, including water, wastewater. Did you hear anything during the campaign from either of the party leaders that gave you a little bit of hope that whoever does form this next provincial government, if it is a continuation of Scott Moe or Carla Beck, that you would be happy, or your municipality would be happy with the way that they are looking at addressing municipal revenue?
Well, I think ultimately Saskatchewan is probably one of the envies of the country, where we do have municipal revenue sharing. And it's important to note that that was a program that was actually put forward by the NDP government way back when they were in power. And it's been enhanced by the Sask Party government. Some of it has been clawed back in the last few years, but it's been a program that's been an envy of the country. And we're starting to see fractures in the way that programs run. And you'll hear often from different MLAs when you talk to them, they'll say, well, that's what revenue sharing is for. When you go ask about maybe upgrading your water treatment plant, well, that's what revenue sharing is for. And that's not what ultimately what the program was designed for. It was to help move municipalities forward and kind of catch them up with not having to increase property taxes so high. And I think as we see with the Sask Party, there's going to be quite a few new MLAs. I think there needs to be an education process on that with all the MLAs in the legislature of that program. But also going forward, they also need to know what their lane is, what the municipal lane is, and what the provincial lane is for funding infrastructure. And ultimately, if we have to keep raising property taxes to pay for things like mental health and addictions, that also takes away from funding roads and water treatment, recreational facilities, all those things that people like. That are in the municipal purview. We're actually funding provincial initiatives. And I think I liken it to, we seem to be the fallback now for any government that makes a bad policy decision. Municipalities become the fallback to prop up or find the way to move things forward when the provincial policy or the federal policy fails. And that's not the way it should have ever been. And I think we need to have that discussion.
I mentioned that this is your almost last few weeks of being mayor of your community. I would be remiss without saying, from myself, I want to thank you so much for everything you've done for me, from being a small town mayor in advocating for small town municipalities, but also small communities just like Torquay. Leaving on a high note like you are, I can imagine there's probably some bittersweet memories that you have of being your mayor for so long. Looking back on your time, what do you hope people of Torquay and people of Saskatchewan remember you by?
Well, I think ultimately, and you say small town, I like to say small village because we're a village. But I think it's important to recognize that villages do matter in the province of Saskatchewan. And I hope I brought that to the table at the provincial level and also the federal level. I think it's important to hear that, villages, people want to live in villages, and they're great places to live. And sometimes those small communities, they want to grow, but they don't want to grow at the speed of light like some governments want you to. And ultimately, everybody deserves the opportunity to have clean drinking water and sewer. And I think villages can provide that. And I'm one of them people, you go across the country and you hear people say amalgamation. Why doesn't Saskatchewan amalgamate all their 732 or 42, Jean-Marc can correct me, but municipalities in the province? And ultimately, it's more, in my opinion, it's more about cooperation. Why can't we get along with our neighbors and cooperate to make a better community? And Torquay is a small community of 215 people right now, but getting along with your neighbor that's a rural municipality, an RM, which is basically a land-based government, is important, but also getting along with your closest urban center, which for us would be Estevan, and we have agreements in place. And I think that's the way forward for Saskatchewan. And the other thing I would say, for me, leaving politics, I hope I left it in a better place. There was things I got done in Torquay that I really wanted to do. We upgraded our water and sewer, and I think getting people involved, like this last election, I didn't have to go out and try and find somebody to run for a council position. We actually had people step forward, and that's important to me, that people are coming here and want to be involved in their community. And I think that is one of the things that I take away the most of. Is when I ran, we had to have a by-election, but this time we are having people step forward, and that's important. People want to be involved in their community, and I only see that as a positive going forward, that these younger people are getting involved and want to strengthen their community.
While you do classify as a village, I will always have a spot in my heart for calling Torquay a town, because you have made Torquay so much bigger than just a village, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy night while you're watching these results, and hopefully we will talk in the future, because hopefully we don't end our municipal friendship after tonight there, Mike.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris, and I think it's important for people to be involved in politics. I think it drives their community, and I've heard lots of people in the municipal elections coming up in Saskatchewan say they're not getting in it for the politics. Well, municipalities have a politics all unto their own, and if you don't know what your coffee row is saying, there's something wrong. So ultimately, those people will get involved for whatever reason, and I hope it's not a one reason solution to get involved, but municipalities matter, and going forward, there needs to be a huge discussion across the country about how we fund municipalities, and even from the smallest to the biggest. And a lot of times we hear a lot about the biggest municipalities, but they have the same issues as the smallest communities, whether it's in Torquay or Isle of Cross in northern Saskatchewan or Buffalo Narrows. We all have the same issues, and going forward, different orders of government need to recognize that and find a way to partner with us to fund municipalities properly. And I appreciate your comments, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. And we'll be right back after about a 5-minute break while Dale and I will break down some more results. So be right back. Stay tuned, everyone. Dale, thank you so much for joining us. We just got off the phone with Mike Strachan from Torquay, and now we are about 2.5 hours after polls have closed, with just over 27% of the results in. According to Election Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Party is leading and elected in 33 seats. The Saskatchewan New Democrats are leading and elected in 26 seats. Dale, these numbers are a lot different than the last time we looked at them on record.
Yep.
We talk about that urban-rural divide, and it is now apparent.
Yeah, it seems to be. Yeah. When I was in my last segment, we said there were a lot of results to come in still, particularly in Regina and Saskatoon, and here they are. Definitely some close races to keep an eye on. Prince Albert, both of those for sure. At least one in Moose Jaw, and lots in Regina and Saskatoon. But not really any, I guess at this point, major surprises for me. The NDP were surging. Their strengths were going to be in Regina and Saskatoon, and that's what we're looking like here so far, Chris.
Just looking at the preliminary results, still some coming in. Like you said, we're only 30% of votes counted now.
Yeah.
Looks like a clean sweep for the Saskatchewan NDP in Regina. That's
Could be
a few big losses potentially for the cabinet under Scott Moe. While we are still early days, are you looking at any particular riding right now to potentially see where the Saskatchewan Party could eke out a win?
Well, Regina Wascana Plains, for sure. I think Christine Tell was, last I saw, she was down by a couple votes.
As of right now, she's down by about 24 votes.
Yeah, and how many polls?
4 out of 11 polls are reporting.
Yeah, so they're pretty slow on publishing those. One of the things that should be kept in mind at this point is most of the campaigns should know the results at this point. So there's a delay between relaying information to. So this is very interesting. I'm just seeing Moose Jaw, Wakamo, Megan Patterson of the Saskatchewan Party is up by a couple hundred votes on Melissa Patterson for the NDP. So that is very interesting. And they just added 2, and Kevin Kaysen in Prince Albert, Carleton is up by 350 or so. And my God, a really close result in PA Northcote. So, yeah, there's a couple that are going to come right down to the wire. No question about it. There'll be some mail-in ballots that'll come into play. But, yeah, that Prince Albert Northcote, it is tight year after year after year. Credit to Alana Ross and the Sask Party campaign. If they are in this campaign, yeah, and they're just, as Chris and I are talking here, they're just showing it on CBC's screen. Yeah, she's up by about 29 votes there. Credit to Alana Ross in this election, in that constituency, for her to be up at this stage. And again, she may not have pulled it off. Maybe the results have come in, but that is an extremely good result so far, particularly if she wins it. Yeah.
I'm just going around the results right now. It looks like there's about 4 ridings that are currently outstanding, if I'm doing my basic math here correctly. And that is the city of Yorkton has no results coming in.
Right.
Saskatoon or Riversdale has not had anything come in as well. And then there is 2 ridings in Regina Coronation Park, and if I can pull this up, Regina Lakeview, which is Carla Beck's own riding.
Yeah, both will go NDP, so we don't need to worry too much about those. I did just see that the CBC reported that in Regina Rochdale that Laura Ross had lost. So that was one that we had talked about earlier. So that has gone to the NDP.
So that is the now potentially former Minister of Parks, Culture, and Sports Minister, and responsible for status of women, Francophone affairs, lotteries, and gaming. That's a mouthful if I've ever heard of it.
It's a lot of different portfolios into one basket there. Yeah. Yeah. So Ms. Ross, former Minister Ross, she has lost. So that's certainly one of the results to watch so far. The other one that I had seen rolling across the screen was Saskatoon Stonebridge, which we had talked about, and Bronwyn Air, I believe, was down in that constituency. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Lisa Lambert has lost, it appears, in Churchill Wildwood in Saskatoon, and that's what we're looking at right now.
So. Let's have a little history lesson
right
now.
Yeah.
We are still, there's Regina Lakeview just coming in according to CBC. It still hasn't been populated, so we could be seeing that any moment now. But we are leading an elected 34 votes for the, just want to make sure I'm getting the most accurate numbers. So I'm just going to refresh everyone. I apologize. Leading an elected in 34 seats for the Saskatchewan Party, for the Saskatchewan New Democrats, 26 leading and elected. This is a close race.
Yep.
This could be determined by a few seats going back and forth. The
Yep.
last time this was this close, just being the person I am, was in 2003 when Lauren Calvert won his first election as premier, and he got 30 seats, and Elwyn Hermanson won 28 for this, then the first
Yep.
leader of the Saskatchewan Party. While we are still early, these numbers are coming in around those areas where it could be determined by 3 or 4 seats either way.
Yeah. No, it's close for sure. There's a few that are on a knife's edge here.
Would Scott Moe be worrying right now?
I don't know. I mean, they know the results at the campaign headquarters as to where things are going. So.
Lawyers are about to get involved here because they're probably going to be starting some calls about if there's any re-election or recounts that are going to be needing to go to.
Yeah, there'll be recounts, particularly like Saskatoon, Silver Spring. I saw. Okay, they're reporting.
Now
Yorkton's. Okay, so David Chan. It looks clearly in front there.
Which is
in
Greg
Yorkton.
Ottenbright's old riding as well.
Yeah, so there was some discussion about that particular constituency. It's one that I had identified that if it, for some reason, not necessarily going to the NDP, but if the Sask Party does not win that constituency, that could be an indication of where things are going to go on tonight. But so it looks like David Chan with Sask Party is clearly in front there. So with a good margin.
Looking around at the 2 largest cities right now, the only 2 seats that the Saskatchewan Party currently holds in either Saskatoon or Regina, as in leading and elected, are currently Saskatoon Willow Grove and Saskatoon Silver Spring, which just looking just to make sure, it's Ken Cheveldayoff and Paul Miraman, who is Minister of Corrections, Policing, and Public Safety Minister. Again, I hate to say early days, and we're going to continue to say this until we get at least about 40%, 45% of the polls in. This is going to be a really rurally based Sask Party and a really urban based Saskatchewan NDP party. It's going to be fun for the next 4 years if this holds the way it does for that urban-rural divide in the province, isn't it?
I don't know about fun, Chris.
From a political observer,
maybe. It clearly the results are Saskatchewan Party very strong rurally, NDP doing well in the cities. I'll be watching here if which side obviously comes on the positive side of these couple really tight ones in Saskatoon in particular. But I don't know if it's fun. I'm not personally a fan of a government that's represented by, that has no seats represented in major parts of the province, either, rurally or in Saskatoon or Regina. It's just a personal thought of mine, but
can I ask the federal question if you don't mind?
Yeah, certainly.
What does Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre look at this result? Because we are seeing an urban-rural divide between progressive politics and more conservative politics. Does Pierre Poilievre, who seems to be trying to win over those urban seats in downtown Toronto, Regina, which Saskatchewan's always voted majority liberal or majority conservative, is there anything the federal party leaders need to take away from this election?
I think focus on issues that are truly important to people, pocketbook issues, which I'd say by and large is why Poilievre has done so well so far. His hammering of the carbon tax, of the Trudeau carbon tax, is, when it comes down to it, it's not about environmental policy. It's about keeping a bit more money in people's pockets and in families' bank accounts so that they can spend a bit more money on their kids. It's
Does Jagmeet Singh look at this and say, I could win in potentially Saskatoon or Regina?
No. maybe one of the ridings in Saskatoon, but it's just the math. It's just the
Math's gonna math.
Well, and the makeup of the ridings in even Saskatoon and Regina are different than individual constituencies. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to look at here. I certainly would not. If I were Justin Trudeau, I would not be looking at any of this and thinking, "Oh boy, I can definitely win seats in Saskatchewan." Certainly not. So, Wascana Plains is still NDP ahead by 150 votes. Yeah.
We're going to be waiting for Scott Moe and Carla Beck to give their concession speeches. What should Scott Moe do or say in his speech tonight to extend that olive branch to start building back that coalition that Brad Wall potentially had in 2011 to 2007?
If these results hold, and I think if it's 35-26 we're looking at right now, or 34-26, I mean, it could go either way. At this point, the Sask Party could drop down a bit. NDP could go up a few seats. If this is the way it shakes out, I would say, I would advise the Premier to say, we hear you, and I personally hear you, particularly those of you in the larger cities in this province that we have not measured up recently, or what we were presenting, either our plan or things that we have said recently, that those have not caught on. Just an acknowledgement of this result is not amazing, particularly when, as we discussed before, the Saskatchewan Party made its biggest gains by picking up a number of seats in Regina and Saskatoon in the last number of elections, and that's a big that can be a big game changer. So an acknowledgement of, we have not been perfect. We did not present the best plan for all of Saskatchewan. It's clear that some of our ideas did not hit home with as many people as we had hoped, and we're going to do better.
And finally, what should Carla Beck be saying tonight? Again, if these results hold, they still could change, but usually even a leader comes out and says something to the supporters. What should she potentially be saying to her supporters tonight, or to the people of Saskatchewan? And to the people of Saskatchewan, I apologize.
Yeah, it's I think a bit more challenging for somebody in this position. I mean, they could be on the cusp of forming. They're just on the cusp of forming government and taking a surprise win here. So the message is we that our message is doing well in Regina and Saskatoon. And that could be enough, but boy, we have a lot of work to do in the rest of the province. So, I mean, it really is. So I'm just looking at Stonebridge. It looks like the NDP has won there, Saskatoon Stonebridge. If really both of the two parties are speaking to two different audiences, and again, I'll just come back to what I said about one of the NDP's consideration is. Maybe they admit that the rural Saskatchewan is not where they pick up the results, and instead they just now focus on, okay, how can we get to 32 seats here in 2028? Or, I mean, again, they could get there tonight, but where are the seats that we can pick off from the Sask Party that are not deep in Saskatchewan territory, which a lot of these seats are. Sask Party has major majorities here.
It looks like Carla Beck will do something that Cam Broughton, Ryan Miley, and Dwayne Ligenfelter were unable to do, and break into those 20-seat range. We are now officially, I think we've been this way for some time now, but we are now officially a two-party system in this province.
Yes.
I think after 5 elections, we could officially declare that.
Yes.
While democracy is good and more parties are willing to be out there, it seems like Scott Moe and Carla Beck are going to be the major players in this province for another 4 years if they don't step down and potential leadership races do transpire.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's you bring up a good point there, Chris. That how does Premier Scott Moe handle this next period here? Yeah. I can't imagine he would give any indication tonight unless they end up losing. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting next period, I think, for the Premier and what he decides to do in the next while. He'll be talking to his team and his family, and who knows? I mean, maybe his approach to tonight is that we can get back to where we were before this election, and we just need to make a few tweaks. But I'm still the right man for the job, and there's a change in strategy and approach, which certainly there's a lot of changes that can be made in that regard. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting next couple of years.
To me, fun. To you, interesting. That's the key word. We'll be right back after about a 5-minute break. We're going to be sitting down with John Nadeau to talk about the reaction from Suma and how his work is about to begin and some of the key policy advocacy areas that he'll be trying to discuss with whatever party comes out on top here. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning back in. We are back for our last recap of the night before we close up shop. The results are still trickling in. We are currently standing at Saskatchewan Party leading and elected in 34 seats. The Saskatchewan New Democrats leading and elected in 27 seats. No other party has gained a seat, with about 40% of the polls reporting. John Mark, from Suma's perspective, looking at these results, advocacy, I'm assuming, is going to be a top priority, but not just with the Saskatchewan Party, but also with the Sask NDP, correct?
Absolutely. We treat both parties, obviously the party in government, a little bit closer attention, but we advocate to both parties for sure. Yep.
Is it different advocacy streams that you will be doing, or is it the same message that you'll be giving to the NDP as the Sask Party?
Generally, it's the same message. There's just more meetings with government, obviously. It makes more sense, right? They control the agenda, the policy agenda, but certainly we want to make sure that every MLA, and quite frankly, the entire caucus, we have implemented some MLA advocacy over the summer months, usually with all MLAs of the legislature. So, quite frankly, we just go at it with both parties.
We are about 3 hours after polls have closed. We have no clear winner. What's your message to your members today, looking at the results and trying to figure out what Suma will be doing tomorrow morning on their behalf?
Well, as I mentioned when we first started this evening, we'll work with any party that's in government, and we're going to continue advocating our mental health and addiction, because those are issues that are not just in the major centers. We'll continue advocating the Police Act reform, as well as our Municipal Eco Action Center, the environment piece that we really haven't talked about here this evening. But so those are going to be the files that we'll get ready as soon as there's ministers that are appointed. We'll get some meetings going with their offices and start talking about these files.
I promise you that I will bring that up in a future episode of Municipal Affairs. So don't think that we didn't talk about it. Well, we will talk about it. Dale, from your perspective, we're still waiting for the official call here, but your parting words about what you saw tonight and what the next steps are for the Saskatchewan Party and the Saskatchewan NDP.
A lot of questions for the Sask Party. Yeah, I think if again, Chris, there's a few constituencies that really could go either way. I think the NDP is up by just a hair in a couple of these, but it's tight either way. But if this is the case, the Sask Party could drop down to 32 potentially tonight. They could go up to 35 maybe. It's still not totally clear here. But I would have a lot of questions for the Saskatchewan Party on this result and how they handle this going forward. The NDP has momentum. They've swung big and knocked it out of the park in Regina and Saskatoon in constituencies that for a very long time had been very safe Sask Party seats. So this is fascinating. Tim McLeod was reelected by a big margin in Moose Jaw North, so that'll be something to watch going forward there. Really a fascinating result. Probably a month ago, I don't think people would have thought it would maybe be this close. But any
big surprises?
Wait a minute, let me just say this.
Okay.
As we say, campaigns matter, right? Carla Beck and the NDP had a solid campaign. They really didn't make too many missteps, if any. They had some questions from some folks on the parts of costing of their platform, but they really had a good campaign.
Any big surprises? Looking at the initial results right now, a few big losses of cabinet ministers in Regina.
Yeah, potentially in Saskatoon as well.
Saskatoon, but are those just the big surprises?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so. It's, again, I come back to what I think people in the Saskatchewan Party thought were safe constituencies. in Saskatoon and not so much Regina. Wascana Plains might be one of those in Regina, but in Saskatoon for sure. But the result of that, I would say, is that there were long-term incumbents that did not run again for the Saskatchewan Party. Don Morgan in Saskatoon Southeast, it's looking like that could go NDP to a very young woman candidate. And
Greg Lawrence didn't stand for re-election. Don McMorris, a lot of people.
Yeah, but also Gord Wyant in Saskatoon, Chief Mr. Wassas, who he's running for mayor. He could be you could be working with him again right away here, which will be nice. But that it's looking like that constituency could go. So Megan Patterson, I think it's looking like she has won in Moose Jaw Wakamo. That is, she won by 600 votes, or very close there. I think that result is likely done there. So, wow, credit both Moose Jaw seats. And that's looking like a win in Prince Albert Carleton for Kevin Kaysen. So, holy cow. And, oh my God, look at this result in PA Northcote. Again,
just over about 56.
71 votes. If Alana Ross wins that constituency, put that woman in cabinet as soon as you can, Premier Moe, if this result ends up the way that it is, because, man, what a result. Having said that, it's a good reminder. So if this holds, Sask Party will have won, I think, both seats in Moose Jaw and Prince Albert, which there was a lot of time spent by both Carla Beck and Scott Moe in those two cities in this campaign. And as I think we said earlier, there's only 4 seats total, 2 in each.
4 seats meant majority government for either party.
I guess. Yeah, no, I guess that's exactly right, Chris. So
still early, haven't officially been called, but we are winding down here. I want to thank you, Dale. I want to thank you, John Mark, for sitting down with me for the last almost 4 hours and doing this. While our coverage of this is going to be coming to an end, we will have stories all week. I want to remind you, if you haven't already, head over to thescoop.ca and sign up for the Scoop Political Briefing. It gets delivered to your weekly inbox. This man right there, all his insights that you just heard tonight are delivered directly to your inbox every morning during the weekday, and it's free. It's a resource that I used for covering this election. And for Suma.
I need to go home and write that newsletter now, by the way, so... no, not entirely. I do have a colleague that helps me write it, but late night.
So sign up. The link is thescoop.ca. And for more information on Suma, head over to suma.org. That's SUMA.org. And you can check out all this man is doing and the team that he has with him, because it's a team effort on Suma. Dale, John Mark, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for being with us, Chris, and we really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. Great time. Thank you.
We just want to remind you, our coverage of this is going to be ending tonight, but our coverage of the Nova Scotia provincial election that was just called on Sunday starts tomorrow. We're going to be sitting down with the president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities this week, so check out for that. And then we're going to be speaking to mayors and councillors from across the province, newly elected mayors and councillors from across the province, to talk about what they're wanting from their next provincial government. So until next time, stay engaged. Stay informed, and we'll see you, hopefully not live, but we'll see you tomorrow on a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews, where we sit down with the Village of Andrew, Councillor Merwin Height. So check that out on your YouTube channel or wherever you get your favorite podcast apps. Till then, have fun, everyone.